Hey guys, we're back. This time we're taking a look at Gravwell, the second edition from Renegade Games. And this one, I played the original a long time ago, and it had been a long time. And this had been out, and I'd never tried the second. And then some people at the local game store got me to play it. I really enjoyed it, and I've been talking to Corey online about it, the designer, and finally decided to pick up a copy for myself for my collection. It is a lot of fun. There's some things that seem more complicated than they really are, but it's basically a chaos game because everything you try to plan and strategy gets thrown out the window as soon as cards start getting played. So we're going to get in and take a look. So the main differences between the original game and the second edition are the art style, really. There's unique ships in this, where in the original they were all the same. There is some other odds and ends that are different, but we'll get to those when they come up. First we have our rulebook here, and it's thicker than you would expect, because there isn't a ton to this game, but it definitely has some thingy parts to it. There we've got what is new. So you can see there a change of things that are new to this edition of the game. And then the components list, how to set up, the goal of the game, how a turn sequence works, the 4 types of cards. So you have 2 tractor beam cards and 2 repulsor cards. The standard tractor beam, which is, it's hard to see on these, but they're that color. They have the one little icon there, and they pull your ship towards the nearest object. Then you have the repulsor, which is that icon there, and they push you away from the nearest object. Then on the flip side, you have the multi-points, which the tractor beam pulls objects towards you, and the repulsor pushes objects away from you. And they have the same icons in the corners of the cards here, but there's 2. And then there's little examples of things. I love when they show you examples of how things work. They talk to you about drifting, which we'll get to, and the end of a round. And then they have a mining fuel card. This is how you get new cards, kind of a draft mechanic to get new cards to your hand. And then the end of the game. And they show some examples. And the rest of this, I think, is all examples. They go you through almost a whole turn explaining how it works. Then we have a section on the back here that shows our ships. There should be 2 pages of that. Pages are stuck together there. Yeah, there's some special case rules, some variants. Then we have our ships. So there are 6 new ships, which are all different now. And then the credits. And on the back, there's a cheat sheet that shows you the 2 tractor beams, 2 repulsor beams, how they work. And there you can get a better example of the icons. 1 for pulling you, 2 for pushing. These are the pushing ones. 1 for pushing you, 2 for pushing everything, 2 for pulling everything, 1 for pulling you. Then they have a description of what each does, so you can leave that on the table as a quick reference during the game. Next we have our board, and this is actually, I think it's a little oversized for what it needs to be. I don't think it needed to be that big, but it serves its purpose. I guess it's not huge, but it definitely could be smaller for what it is to take up less table space. There is a neat little thing on here. I don't know if I can get it on the camera, where it actually shows you all the different elements that are in the fuel cards and how many of each there are. And I always thought that was kind of a cool little thing to have. And then down here in the corner is our round turn counter. We also have a flyer in here for some other Renegade games, Total Destruction and Stellar. The insert is like perfectly functional, although these are a little tight. They're great for shipping because nothing's going to fall out of those, but at the same time, yeah, they're a little tight, popping things in and out. But you have our marker here. This is what you're going to use to keep track of the turns. You have our 6 unique ships. And I will say they are pretty cool models, as opposed to the original where they were all the same. And again, these are a little tighter than I think they needed to be to get in and out. I'm always afraid I'm going to break something getting them in and out of there. So it's kind of an organic looking ship. This thing vaguely reminds me of the ship from Futurama. And then an asymmetrical. Gotta love it. Now in the original game there were debris. It was like wrecked ships. In this one they have shipping containers. And those will go out on the board in the debris field locations. And they're basically just extra objects for you to pull and push off of based on how many players you have. And we're just going to throw some ships out here. Should be plenty. And then we have another new addition to this. There was an emergency stop, I think, in the original, which is still here. And you use it like this. When you go to use it, instead of resolving your card, you can use this in case it is as if it's a 0. You can only do it once per round, though. So you flip this over, and you don't have to move. It stays off until the next round. So those were in the original game. Now they have an additional 3 special abilities, which all start uncharged like this. And whenever you achieve these objectives up here, you're going to flip them over. They're armed, and they'll give you a special ability. When the special ability is used, they get flipped back down, and you'll have to rearm them again. I believe you get to arm 1 for free at the end of each round as well. So that's kind of cool. But there are a unique set of those for each of the colors of ships. Each have their own special abilities. And they each have a little slightly different look to their control panel, which is kind of neat. But yeah, they all do different things. I'm probably flipping through them too fast, but emergency stops the same for everybody, but then the other ones are different. I think they're sets. I want to say there's like 2 of each of the different kinds, but they're not exactly the same, or maybe 1 card out of the 3 is the same. Next we have our actual fuel cards, and these are a variety of different actual chemical components. The name of the components down there. But the more important part up here is in the top corner. You have your single tractor beams. You have your, well, they're all kind of, there's a double repulsor. There's a double tractor beam. And a single repulsor. And you're going to draft, and I'm not going to go through the whole drafting process, but there's basically piles of these laid out, and you're going to pick and choose when you have your hand. I think it's 5 cards, I want to say. A round consists of you playing every one of the cards in your hand. So you need to pick and choose what you're going to play when. We already went over what the push and pull type things are. The numbers, how many spaces you're going to be pushed or pulled. And then the letters of the elements are going to determine turn order. So everyone's going to choose a card out of their hand. You're going to put it face down. And let's say, oh, let's see, for this, we're going to be the black guy here. So we're going to try doing this here. So we're going to put this face down. When everybody's decided what they're going to play, you turn all your cards face up. You go into alphabetical order from A to Z to try to figure out who's going to go when. The general rule is that the higher a card's worth, like in this case, the 8 has a W, which is going to put you farther down the list than, say, a 1, which is an A. It's not always true, as I have a 1S in here too. But you got to take into account, again, if you're pulling stuff towards you, pushing things away from you, pulling yourself towards things. In this case, I'm hoping that by playing a G and it's a pull towards the closest thing. Well, if I'm this black guy, the closest thing to me is this red guy behind me. So I'm hoping that by going on a G, he's going to move at some point and be ahead of me. Now I'm going to pull myself, when it gets to my turn, towards the closest thing, 5. He's now the closest thing in front of me. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's pretty much how the system works. The problem is when you decide that you're going to do something and it completely backfires on you. So say we're going to go with this W8, and it is a pole tractor 8, and I'm hoping that somebody's either going to end up in front of me, but what happens is this guy moves on, ends up here, and this guy ends up right behind me. Well, now I'm going to pull towards the closest thing 8 spaces, which is now backward. So I would go all the way back to here, or I could use my emergency stop, flip that card over, and not move at all, which is what those situations are for. You're going to burn through these cards until they're all gone. The pulling guys towards you can really mess up a lot of people, as well as pushing things away. That really comes into play if you're in, say, here. Let's see, how do we want to set this up as a good example? I'm not sure how to put this, but yeah, there's different ways you can deal with things like that. The other thing to keep in mind is if, say, we were like this, and we used a tractor beam, which would pull us towards the closest object. Well, now there's 2 objects that are equal distance away from us, and to break that tie, we look at the next. So here we've got 2 objects here, 2 objects there versus 1 behind us. That's going to be a greater pull. We're going to pull towards them. The repulsor and double tractor can really screw up other people's days in the fact that in this case here, if we were to use our 1 tractor and just say it's our turn, we're going to pull everything to us, and we start with the closest things to us. So if this is us, he's going to get pulled 1, and because he lands on us, he drifts 1 past us. This is going to get pulled 1. He's going to get pulled 1. And you can see how that kind of changed things up based on what they were planning on doing. Maybe the yellow guy here was in front of this. He was planning on pushing off of it. Well, now he's in the middle, and the 2 in front of him, he's going to push off and go backwards. So you can really mess up somebody's day. The repulsor does the exact same thing. Double repulsor here would move all the objects. So if we were to play that in our situation, he's going to move 1, 2. This is going to move 1, 2. He's going to move 1, 2. And it just really can mess up everybody's day. If you have a single repulsor, which I didn't actually have in my hand there, but if you have a single repulsor in this, it's going to push your ship away that number. So in this case, again, equal distance both sides, 1 thing there, 2 things there. So we're going to go forward 2 spaces. And that's pretty much how the game plays until you run out of rounds, or until somebody reaches the opposite warp gate. Now, in the original game, you were all, I think you all started in the middle and you were working your way out. In this one, you do as well, but if you play above a certain count, some of the players are going to start on the outer one, working their way in, and that makes all kinds of chaos, because especially when you get towards the middle where everybody's crisscrossing, all kinds of hell breaks loose because you don't know what you're pushing and pulling where, and you really got to think about that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much everything there is in the quick version here of Gravwell. I really like the game. I like the new components. I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of the cargo containers over the original game. I believe had like derelict ships. They were actually shipwreckage that went there. So that's kind of a step down, but everything else is a improvement. I like the new artwork. I love the different ships. I love the asymmetrical abilities for the ships. And yeah, just everything else about the game is great. And you can always replace these debris with whatever you want as well. There's nothing wrong with the cargo containers. They are kind of cool, but it doesn't have the same feel as the wrecked ships. This is one, like I said, I bought because I played the original many times and I wanted to get to the second edition one. I've really been wanting to try it out. Got a chance to try it and I liked it. There's definitely improvements over the original in a lot of areas. And I have no real complaints about it other than the cargo containers, which I mentioned, which are no big deal. And they move around the board anyway. They're just components. Overall, the components are great, though. The screen printed wooden disc for your turn counter. Like I said, the ships are cool. The one thing is, it's kind of a deceptive game, though. It looks very simple. It sounds very simple. There's the 4 types of cards. 2 of each, push and pull. One moves you, one moves stuff around you. And it seems like it should be pretty easy, but the kind of strategy, the way the strategy works is every single time somebody moves, it throws a monkey wrench in your plans. And the game becomes a lot more complicated than you think. And it's best, I've found, not to take it too seriously and to kind of treat the game as a fun game, just a time waster. And you laugh with your friends about it. You play a card, and oh, I really screwed you over. I pushed you over here, and now you're closer to the to this. So when you use your tractor beam, instead of pulling off me, you're going to pull off that. You're going to go backwards, and then the next turn they do the same thing to you, and everybody laughs. And you play that 10 movement card, and you think you're going to get, oh, this is going to help. I'm going to get way ahead, and then somebody does something to screw you over. Yeah, lots of interesting little combo things that happen. And unless you're super detail oriented and you're really planning for that kind of stuff, there's no way to predict what's going to happen. And it becomes, like I said, more of a fun kind of free for all, beer and pretzel type thing than anything you can take too seriously. And I'm okay with that. Just something to keep in mind. That said, there are people out there who can do all those calculations and do all that math in their head, and they will excel at a game like this. But I don't think that's any fun. I think the fun is screwing each other over and laughing about it. Overall, though, it is a great game, and comes with a very nice insert, I have to say, for a factory-style insert here to be able to hold everything in place. I do say that the box could have been a little smaller. Not that there's a problem with that. I like this size box. It's probably my favorite standardish size box. And the board is actually the big thing. I think the board could have been considerably smaller. Some of these are bigger than others. I never noticed that. How do they go in like that? There we go. I have no idea how the ships went in here. But some are apparently bigger than others, which I never paid attention to. Yeah, the board could have been a little bit smaller, I think, and nobody would have complained. That said, it's perfectly fine the way it is. It is bright and colorful. It does catch people's eyes, but it could have been... I don't know. I don't know how to do it. Because, yeah, if you made it smaller, then it would fit in the box. It's a weird thing. But there's nothing wrong with the size. It's a good size. You could have made it, like I said, a little bit smaller in here, so when you fold it out, it didn't take up so much table space. But then again, there's not a lot that goes around it that takes up more space, so it doesn't need to be. So I'm complaining about nothing here. Overall, though, I do really like the game. I think it's a good improvement over the first edition, and I'm definitely glad I picked one of these up. If it is something that looks like it might interest you, definitely check it out. I think there's a version of it on Tabletop Simulator too if you wanted to try it, but I'm not sure if it's automated or you have to do everything manually. But either way, it's a fun time. Like I said, don't take it too seriously. Don't get mad if you get screwed over. That's part of the game. And have fun with it. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for our look at Gravwell 2nd Edition. Hope it helps you decide if it's something for you. And as always, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next video.